Hello again, Dan Alasso making history, and it is day 7 of my retrenchment. Although I have to admit it's beginning to seem less like an adventure and more like just a routine, the new normal. There haven't really been any major changes, there's no breaking news overnight. I am going to begin working on finalizing my syllabi for the fall classes that I'm teaching over the next couple of days. I will be teaching U.S. History 1 with my primary source anthology this fall, and also Women in World History, which is an elective that I've taught in the past, and American Environmental History, which I'm also revising for this semester. And in addition, I have a 3-credit course release, which I had arranged previously to work on the Z-Degree project, which is the attempt to prepare BSU to implement zero textbook cost bachelor's degree programs, which, if it managed that, would be the first university in the system to have that available, and actually the first one in the state. So I'm going to continue working on that, although that will probably now be playing out in a different way than it would have, and that how I would have worked on it under other circumstances if all of this hadn't happened. And I should say that the retrenchment and the events of this week have reminded me of the fact that the funding for the work that I was doing for this release came from the previous exploratory grant that I got. And so ultimately, my client for that exploration is the system office. So thinking about it that way, I can definitely research and report to the system office on how to prepare a university to implement a zero textbook cost program, zero textbook cost majors, what some of the tasks that would have to be achieved would be, what some of the challenges would be, even if it's not necessarily going to be BSU that ultimately implements that type of a plan. Now, I'm not saying that my current university definitely won't do a Z degree. My dean has always been hugely supportive of this and still is. She even suggested to me that if I could lock down the $100,000 implementation grant, that might save my job, assuming that a portion of that could go toward covering a portion of my salary for a couple of years. She thought that that would be a strong argument, bringing grant money to the university as a way of proving my worth. And that is technically possible, especially given how modest my salary is. Ironically, though, there might actually be some pushback from the union if the university tried to protect or to reinstate my job out of order of the seniority roster. One of the biggest ironies about this whole situation for me, from where I stand, is that although it's not all about what's happening to me, what is happening to me is really a combination of management and the union's priorities that have resulted in me being retrenched. From the administration's position, the best solution was to cut faculty rather than athletics or infrastructure or management. From the union's perspective, seniority is the only criterion for ranking. It's the only thing that matters. And I think that together, those priorities of management and the union are part of the insanity that is gradually destroying higher ed. But that's a story for another day. Back to the Z degree. I might be able to do myself some good if I managed to write a successful grant proposal and got the $100,000 to implement a Z degree over 2 years. I was reasonably certain that I was going to win that grant before all of this happened, based on my interaction with people at the system office. Now I think that it would be a lot of work, and I also think that there would be some questions from the grant committee, especially due to the retrenchment and the morale headwinds that we're going to face, and the confusion that's going to be caused by not only the retrenchment, but then by the reorganization of the colleges. I'm also, to be honest, not sure that I could adequately promise that the implementation would go off as I planned it if I'm not around. I don't think that I could or ought to ask for that kind of money without being able to ensure that it would be put to use and have a reasonable chance of getting the results promised. And I can't guarantee that unless I'm involved in the implementation. I'm not even really talking about the unfairness to me of writing a grant proposal that I wouldn't be able to participate in. I'm just talking about the practicality of being able to reasonably convince a grant committee that the plan would be implemented as it was written. So I guess I will just need to find some way to convince management to give me a 2-year contract, contingent on me getting the implementation grant. And that contract could be funded out of the grant. Saving my job would still be a roll of the dice, since I would actually have to win the grant in order to keep my job. But at least it's got real and tangible conditions attached, rather than kind of a vague hope that things don't turn out to be as bad as we expect, or that the reorganization changes are going to happen quickly enough and successfully enough that we'll be able to save some jobs. So in light of all that, I've gone ahead and I've written a letter to the provost and dean suggesting that, and saying that I would be willing to undertake writing that grant in exchange for a guarantee of a couple years employment as Z-Degree program director if we get to implement it. I'll let you know what happens. So thank you for listening. If you want to support me, especially in producing the history content that I am putting up daily now, please consider doing that. It will be greatly appreciated. And I hope you found some of this interesting. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you again.